the key to the long form interviews is number one, no one can stay in promo mode for that long. So Russell Brand, I always give it as the example. The first half hour of that episode, it's very much, I'll say something. It's interesting you say that, Pip, because there's a chapter in my book about that. If you allow me to read a little segment, and it's all promo mode, half an hour in, it's just two blokes talking. And that's great for a listener. It's also really important for me as a human and for my mental health, genuinely. I'm not the most social person. I'm not the most chatty person at times. But this is forced interaction as such, which helps and means a lot. And I've got to have conversations with people I've known for years that I would never have had. If you meet up with your mates down the pub, you generally talk about the last week, maybe the last month. Other than that, you don't kind of go, oh, how's your week been? Good. What was your upbringing like? You don't go into these, whereas in the podcast, you can say, how did you find it moving from this to that? Or what was it like coming over to this country at such a young age? And things like that. You can have these conversations that wouldn't have been had, and that genuinely means the world to me. I joke about it, but I genuinely feel there's no one that gets more out of my podcast than me. It's great that other people do, but the amount I get out of it, particularly as an actor as well, moving into acting, getting to have conversations and ask advice from Eddie Marsan, from Paddy Considine, from Michael Fassbender, all these amazing people, and get those hints and tips from a Vicky McClure, from Florence Pugh, from all these people that I've got huge respect for. It helps that other people are like hearing it and like listening, but it's a selfish act as much as anything. My advice for anyone starting a podcast is kind of two contradictory bits of advice, because my first is prep. Have your prep done. I like to over-prepare. And again, you will listen to other podcasts on the network and know that they don't do that. I'm looking at you, hardcore listening. But I really like to over-prepare and have so much information that I can't run out of time. I can't run out of things to say. I'm happy to not get through half of it just so I've got enough. But equally, the other key bit of advice is just get out there and do it. So I think you should prepare, but not to the point it delays you or makes you put it off. Just start a podcast. There's a podcast I've been loving recently called Being Nobody. And it's a girl called Alex Simwise, and she records it on her iPhone. That's literally, she's got no other kit, records it on her iPhone and uploads it. And it's amazing. And it could do with some polishing, but that's enough to get started. You can develop along the way. So the process for me, it becomes really habitual. So it's not a week by week thing. It's an opportunity by opportunity thing. So I might have 6 podcasts all coming in the same week, and I'll prepare for them in the same way. I'll stop myself from preparing too early. I like to do all my research either the night before or the morning of. The reason for that isn't me that I'm last minute. It's a struggle sometimes to hold off, but it's so that all the information is fresh in my head. So I'm not having to look at my notes constantly. Ideally, I can have the whole conversation. I'm not looking at my notes once. We're all good. So yeah, I go to wherever the podcast is. I set everything up. I've not got a producer. I've not got a team. I've got too much kit. So I set everything up. We have the conversation. Silly things like I carry these heavy mic stands around because I don't want the guest holding a microphone because you feel like you're being interviewed. If this is just here, then you forget about it and it becomes a conversation. So after that's done, I lug my gear back to Essex. As soon as I get in, I start the transferring process, which takes about an hour to convert it on the system I've got, and then about half hour to upload it and send it to Buddy Peace, who produces it. So that's done. I'm sending it to him. He logs it. When we're a week ahead of the podcast, I'll then record intros and outros because I want them to be current. I don't want to have recorded them a month before because if something's happened in the world that I might want to address or talk about. So yeah, normally on the Friday before the Wednesday, I'll record intros and outros, send them to Buddy Peace. He will then cut it all up and put it all together and mix it. I take a Polaroid selfie of each one, so I'll write on that, handwrite that, send a photo of that to Buddy. he'll upload. Because we're on Acast, we're one of the few that make the most of Acast. So Buddy Peace, when he uploads, he'll tag tons of stuff in the podcast. So as you're listening, if I talk about Pod Bible magazine, you'll be able to look at your phone and click, and it will take you to podbiblemag.com. All these things will be in there, and then it's uploaded, and then it's good to go. On Wednesday morning, every morning, I have an alarm set for 8:45, which is when I get up and I do my Instagram, Facebook and Twitter initial posts, because I want to get people in the morning. And then around 11 or 12, I'll do a second follow-up post. So it's far more organised and military kind of process than you'd imagine. But then, then it's kind of figuring out. So again, the night before or a couple of nights before, I'll make a few images because I don't want to keep posting the same image for the podcast. So I'll make a variation of images of me and the guest and things like that. And then it'll be a case of posting them allotted times over the week. This is getting really nerdy now, but if you look on my Instagram, if you go on the actual page, I'll have all the black background promo images I make. They'll all be in a row. So if I've posted one, I'll know I can't post another one until I posted 2 more different things about something else, and then I can have another podcast one, and then 2 more different things, and then so it's bizarrely organised and planned out for something that comes across as shambolic and last minute and casual. My favourite memory as a listener of podcasts is a recent one, and I've got 3 or 4 memories of it because I've listened to it so many times, but it's when Louis Theroux was on Adam Buxton's podcast the second time, I think, and they'd drunk energy drinks and they'd got a bit hyper and they were having a sing, and Louis singing in falsetto and Adam joining in, just genuinely tears of laughter every time I listen to it. It's perfect podcasting. Well, my dream podcast guest, this is meant to be where I'm all light and funny and I'll go for Prince or someone like that. But I would go for, and this is so heavy, I'd go for my mate Jamie, who died when we were 21. Because some of my favourite podcasts I've done are the Drunk Cast with me and my mate Stu, who did Pod Bible with us, and my mate Chris. And we have such a laugh. And I love the idea of talking to mates on a podcast. As much as I'm honoured to get these amazing, huge stars and doctors and all sorts of stuff, the fascinating ones have been my pals, personally for me. So I'd love to sit down with Jay and see what he thinks about how appallingly we've all aged, because he hasn't. He's got to stay 21, the prick. So yeah, that would be my dream podcast guest.